Hi friends, so hopefully the wind isn't too damaging for this audio. You've probably seen some mention of these meat processing plants. They're really like slaughterhouses, a lot of them, and how there's a lot of workers who are affected by COVID-19, and they can't really keep their spaces between one another because they are killing so many. For example, in pig slaughterhouses like Tyson's and Smithfield's, they slaughter pigs and chickens. The pace of the slaughtering is so fast. It's like 2,000 pigs every hour are slaughtered. Now try and imagine this. I really want you to think about what that must be like. For example, try and imagine, say, an animal whom you've lived with or shared your life with, and that they're sentient, which means they have self-awareness, and it's not about, whether they like us or not. Sentience is all that matters. Just think about that. Imagine 2,000 of that particular animal whom you've considered a family member. Imagine them going fast by in a slaughterhouse line, and people are trying to cut their throats, and imagine what that is truly like, because this is happening every single hour of every day. 2,000 just in one slaughterhouse, 2,000 sentient pigs who love life just like we do and did not want to die, and certainly didn't want to die like that, hanging upside down, and some of them are boiled alive because they miss being stunned, and so they end up being boiled alive. And imagine these people who are often migrant workers working in these slaughterhouses, and they have to deal with that every single second of their working day. And on top of that, they're being threatened by serious illness, and some have died. There's been at least a dozen or more, 16 I think, slaughterhouse workers have died due to COVID-19. So not only are there sentient animals, when we're not vegan, there are sentient animals that are being tortured and killed by the thousands every hour, just in one slaughterhouse, right? So there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands possibly, of slaughterhouses all over the world. And every second of every day globally, there's thousands every second being killed and, tortured and sort of missed and boiled alive accidentally, because they're not stunned, or sliced up with these electric slicing machines because they're flailing around because they haven't been stunned. I mean, it's a horror house. I wish I could convey to you how awful this is and how it's completely avoidable if we become vegan, because we're creating demand for animal products, which means that we're creating demand for slaughterhouses, and we're creating demand for people working in those slaughterhouses who I'm sure would rather be doing something else, but that's all the work they can get because they're either migrants or they're somebody who's been let out from prison. And eventually people that suffer from PTSD or illnesses related to the type of work that they're doing. Either it's psychological that ends up becoming a physical illness, or it's actually a physical illness that happens due to the sort of work they're doing, working with, you can only protect yourself so much, from the matter, the body matter that is there. There are people that they have these blowguns that blow brains out of pigs and stuff, and it aerosolizes, and it can get into your respiratory. It can affect you physically. There are all sorts of things that happen in slaughterhouses, and protective gear can only help so much. But it's a dreadful, dreadful place to work, and it wouldn't be there if you and I were vegan. Just imagine every minute 2,000 pigs are being killed by these people in a fast-paced slaughterhouse line where it's so stressful for the people doing it, and you can't even imagine how awful it is for those pigs, right? That's just in one slaughterhouse. This is normal. And this is only going to get worse. We create demand for animal products, and that's why. That's why this is happening. That's why those migrant workers are there. The migrant workers are there, and they don't want to be there, but they have to be there because that's the only work they can get. But there would be other work for them to do if most of society were vegan. Because I think I've showed you this numerous times if you follow my site. numerous times I've showed you the amount of land that would be spare if we were only, if we were only doing plant agriculture and we weren't doing animal agriculture. There's like China, Australia, and the US is just 3 continents worth of land would be spare if we weren't doing animal agriculture. And even without those spare continents, we would still have enough land to feed the whole world through plants, through eating plants. And a vegan diet is absolutely delicious. The days of saying that it's rabbit food and all those disparaging things that were never true anyway, all of that is just nonsense. I implore you to please think about going vegan, and just think about, like I was thinking just the other day, and this is what inspired me to do another video following the one I was talking about, how they kill animals when they're in excess, which is meaning they can't get them to the slaughterhouses due to the COVID-19 restrictions, so they end up with excess animals who would be going to the slaughterhouses, but instead they have to emergency kill them. I've talked about that, but I'm going to say it again. How they kill these animals that are in excess, and there's millions of them at this point, millions of chickens, millions of pigs, millions of turkeys, etc., all sentient beings that love life just like we do, and this is one of the ways they kill them. This is considered appropriate and legal. They put in heat through the ventilators into these large containment areas where hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of pigs or chickens are. So they put heat in there and they kill them through like baking them, basically. That's the way they kill them in emergency measures, because that's the most economically efficient way. Another way is to basically put carbon dioxide in there, which is called controlled atmosphere killing, which is one of the ways they actually slaughter animals in the world and consider it more humane than all the other awful stuff. And what it does is it makes animals panic. You can imagine if you have a bag over your head and it fills with carbon dioxide, you get very panicky. Well, they spend quite a few minutes panicking. And in the case of when they're taking it slowly out, when they're putting in the carbon dioxide into these large containment areas where there's millions of animals, they put in carbon dioxide and they have this slow, panicky death. So that's seen as completely okay. Now, does it matter in the end how we're treating these animals? In the normal runnings of things, it's dreadful, and things like that, with emergency measures to kill animals because they're in excess, in quotes. Does it in the end matter when it's all awful? The normal runnings of these places is awful. Awful, 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 awful. It's torturous, and it's taking away sentient animals' complete freedom, taking away all their freedom, using them as property, as things, as resources. Does it matter in the end how we treat them when all animal use is abusive? There's no such thing as non-abusive use of animals, and even if there were, it would still be wrong. Does it matter? Not really, because you can never make something that is immoral moral. You can never make something that is hideous good, that is inherently bad, inherently immoral. You can't make it better or good. You cannot. So what is the answer to this? What is the answer to this? All this bullshit, humane use of animals bullshit, even that animal groups put out, these animal welfare groups that call themselves rights groups, but really what they're doing is they're taking money from the public, telling them it's okay, just boycott this and do a meat-free Monday, or do a veganuary, or do fish-free Fridays, and all this nonsense, or boycott McDonald's until they learn how to kill their animals better, or some bullshit like that. Excuse my using the word bullshit, but it is. It's all BS. What do we, all of this narrative that somehow we can make everything better, we can do things better, we can use these animals humanely. It's just nonsense. And so the answer to this is not to try and make something that is immoral better, because you can't. The answer to this is to go vegan and stop using them altogether. And there's so many reasons now to go vegan. It's a moral imperative, but there's so many reasons, between addressing world hunger, between ending this dreadful thing that slaughterhouse workers have to go through and end up with PTSD or end up becoming so sadistic because they're so constantly, their humanity is being sapped from them from killing and torturing these animals. Seeing them all being strung up and coming along the slaughterhouse lines in this fast pace and having to cut throats over and over and over again, and all the other things that they have to do. It's hideous. Can you imagine it? You know, animals that all their only crime is that they were born onto this planet another species. Crime in quotes. So we have to really address this front on. Just please don't turn away from this issue. Please don't go, oh no, here she goes again, talking about veganism. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. These animals are lesser than us. It's okay. It's okay that we do this to them because they're on this planet for us. No, they're not. The only place that that's true is in our heads, and there's a lot of other crap in our heads that isn't true too. We're just telling ourselves that because we don't want to experience cognitive dissonance, because we know what we're doing. We know what we're participating in is wrong. We know what we're doing to them is wrong. We do. We know that. Why do I know that we know that? When people hear that I'm vegan, if I mention it, people start making excuses. Oh, I hardly eat any meat. That's the thing that's often said to me. Oh, I don't eat much cheese. I hardly drink any milk. I drink, nut milk sometimes. I don't care. I don't care about those excuses. They don't make me feel better. But yet people seem to feel like they need to make some sort of apologetic comment. I don't ask them to do that. All I say is, it just happens to come up in conversation. I mention I'm vegan, and suddenly people are giving me all these excuses. I'm not sure why, unless they feel some sort of prick in their conscience about it, and I'd say that's the problem. They know underneath it all that what they're participating in is violence. And how could you not know? I mean, you've got steaks bleeding on your plate. And milk is not so obvious, but there's millions and millions of male calves, young male calves are killed every year, tens of millions every year, possibly in the billions, for milk, because they are byproducts of the dairy industry. They're not needed in the dairy industry. And then eventually, the dairy cows at about 5 years old, who have had a few calves now stolen from them, their children, and they are crying, they're literally crying for days, eventually they're killed because they're not productive anymore. And by the way, often those cows in the more industrialized settings have gigantic udders. They're not normal. They're bred that way. They can hardly walk. Their udders are really painful. They get infections in their udders. There's actually pus normally in milk. There's allowable amounts of pus because cows have mastitis. Read the article I'm going to post in the information section, What's Wrong with Vegetarianism, and read all about free-range eggs and organic dairy. Read all about it, and you'll find what a horror story that is. Like I say, there's no such thing as non-abusive use of animals, and even if there were, it would still be wrong. So please think about that these animal products didn't wind up on the shelves without a tremendous amount of torture and killing and a tremendous amount of suffering from the people who do that. They could be involved in plant agriculture instead of killing animals. Why impose death on these people? Why impose death on these sentient beings that basically deserve to live? And they don't deserve to be bred into existence by the billions, simply so we can then kill them. It's insane, and meanwhile, they're eating all this grain so that then they can be killed later on. It's contributing to world hunger. It's contributing to the climate crisis, the sixth mass extinction, zoonotic diseases. It's destroying the oceans. Don't even get me started what it's doing to the oceans. It's insane what's happening in the oceans, and how many animals who are bycatch, like dolphins and turtles and whales. There's hundreds of thousands of those animals are swooped up in nets, all because we're not vegan. Not that they're more important than the animals that are swooped up in nets that are kept, but then they're just thrown overboard, the bycatch. Look at some of the reports about that. I'll post one of the reports. How many species and how many hundreds of thousands of those species are caught up in bycatch. Check out Seaspiracy, Seaspiracy, on Instagram. Check that out and see what a horror story eating animal products from the sea. Just check it out. If that doesn't shock you, I don't know what will. Seaspiracy on Instagram. And there's also seaspiracy.org. Now please note, I have a disclaimer about anybody and any group or any links, individuals, etc. that I mention on any of my podcasts from the beginning that I started this. A disclaimer that I don't necessarily endorse everything any particular person says or link or group or whatever. But I do present interesting links to sites that I hope that you will check out. So I hope that you will think about it. Sometimes I feel like I can't convey. Like, I think, I've been thinking about just in the last few days, thinking right now there are millions of pigs and chickens that are in these large warehouses and they're slowly suffocating to death. Or their hyperthermia that is imposed on them to kill them in these emergency killings, they're baking to death. Right now, as I'm speaking, there are probably millions of animals just in the United States that are baking to death. Can you imagine that? That they make it so hot in a room that you die of like heat stroke. And that's totally legal. It's seen as totally acceptable. It's an emergency measure to kill excess animals, all because of this COVID thing. And they never make it to the slaughterhouse, they're killed that way. But if they get to the slaughterhouse, that's another horror story. It's fearful, a bloody, awful horror story. And it's only happening because you and I, or well rather, because you and your friends and family and most of the planet at this point are not vegan. I've been vegan for 15 years. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And that's why I wish that for other people, because it is so much more than you think it is. So much more. And you won't know what that means until you become vegan and you've been vegan for a few years. It really is something. And I really can't convey it to you. It's something that you'll have to experience. It's a profound change in you that you'll feel after being vegan for a while. So thank you so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. Thanks for subscribing. Please click the notifications bell if you haven't already. And please leave comments. I always enjoy your comments. And share. Please share with people that you know that are not vegan. I don't show any graphic images in my videos because I don't believe it's helpful. I don't think showing graphic images helps people. And also, I'm not focusing on the treatment. The treatment is always awful of animals. Some more extreme than others, but it's all awful. It's all non-consensual and it's hideous and it has to end. It's all immoral. So I only promote veganism. I don't promote welfare at all. And anybody who calls themselves an animal rights activist, rights being the key word there, should not promote anything less than veganism. So thanks for watching. Please go vegan. Check out my vegan resource, howtogovegan.org, in podcast form. Comprehensive vegan resource. It will help you go vegan and stay vegan. So thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye.